Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Fine. Thank you very much for spending some time with us. Forum Business Travel. We know each other for a while. We collaborate in different areas, even in the all live personal meetings. We appreciate your time and we are going to understand your view. Could you give us an overview of your background and your link to the business travel world?
Wonderful. Thank you, Oscar. And once again, thank you again for inviting me on to talk and a welcome to all of the Forum Business Travel members and attendees today. So my name is Chris POUNEY. I'm based out of the UK. I've worked in the travel industry, corporate travel industry for around 20 something years, 26, 27 years now. So I started my career at American Express corporate travel, working in travel agency operations and account management. I then spent just almost 7 years working with Citigroup as their global head of travel. So based out of the UK, managing travel for 100 plus countries. And I then kind of found my way into the consulting world and also the procurement world. So I was always fascinated by procurement and the relationship between the travel industry and procurement. So I went and qualified. I went and got a master's degree in strategic procurement and really have spent the last 9 years or so as a consultant, almost navigating between buyers and suppliers. So I work with corporate buyers, both in the public and private sector on the consulting projects. I also do work in the supplier sector, so for airlines, hotels, TMCs, where I really help them understand what it is procurement are talking about, and really with a goal of trying to kind of alleviate any fault lines between those two. So hopefully that's a bit of an overview for you, Oscar, and like I say, delighted to be here.
It's great. Thank you very much. The point of this interview is to try to understand what's happening outside of Spain. Our community is mainly Spanish speaking. Therefore, we need to understand as well what's happening in other countries, in other markets. And you are a wonderful example because you are working with clients in different places. Now we are living in a very difficult moment when many things are changing, and it's very difficult to foresee the future. And this is the reason we are having conversation with different people. We don't have any crystal ball, but let's try to have some information from yourself. The first question is, from your point of view, what are the top 5 challenges in the business travel in the next 6 months? If you can guess.
Well, I think the obvious one is just really process and procedure. I think, like a lot of people, I'm kind of looking at the news and looking at my diary and thinking, wouldn't it be great for me to jump on a plane and come and see my clients and come and see prospects and industry colleagues. And I'm sure I'm not alone in kind of scratching my head and saying, I don't know where to start. I genuinely wouldn't know where to start. If I was to come out to see you in Spain, I wouldn't know where to begin to manage the array of processes and challenges that brings. And therefore, to try and consider that from a business travel perspective, I think is really, really tough. So, the challenges are we need to try and make sense of all this. And we think about whether it's things like, just physically booking an aircraft. Will it fly? Will the aircraft be cancelled? What does the airport experience look like? Are the lounges open? Are travelers going to want to travel in economy or coach class anymore? Or are they going to demand having a little bit of space around them and social distance? What does insurance look like? I think not a lot has been made around insurance. So that's a really big challenge of the industry. A lot has been made of testing, right? So, lots of different countries have many different challenges and requirements when it comes to testing. Track and trace, right? If I was traveling on holiday somewhere, on leisure travel, I would absolutely download the local track and trace system. But every country, and I have to say I was really particularly disappointed with our colleagues in Europe, the fact that every country in the EU or every country in Europe has a separate track and trace system. That's incredibly frustrating, incredibly complex to work out. And then obviously things we talked about testing, we talked about passports. So it's incredibly difficult right now to work out what the challenges are. So I think one of the obvious issues is the process. The second issue is how quickly those are changing. So it's one thing working out today what a trip looks like and how I would go about it. but it's making sure that we can keep up to date with changes that are happening, you know, by the minute, by the day. Again, very, very difficult. If somebody's on a business trip or they're in a destination and something changes, that's a really, really big problem for us. The obvious one, of course, is financial model. And I can talk all day almost about the challenges of financial model, but clearly, you know, a lot of organizations, particularly TMCs, but not just TMCs, hotels, airlines, they're built on a transactional model. So when the transactions dry up, the income dries up, and they're left with a whole chunk of stranded cost, if you like. So that's been a massive issue and a massive challenge in business travel. How do they manage that? Is there government support available? And then I think one of the bigger issues is really the fact that, you know, business travel is largely invisible to the common person, right? So the public, the members of the public, they think about travel, they think about leisure travel, they rarely think about business travel. And again, you know, we spend a lot of time, I imagine everybody in this group here will understand why business travel is important. You know, it's critical to your organization. We don't just jump on a plane because we fancy jumping on a plane. We're going somewhere to do something, to generate revenue, to deliver a task. And again, that's largely unknown, I think, to the wider public. And therefore, all of the solutions and conversations that are being discussed at governmental level are really there, it seems, to support leisure travel rather than business travel. So I think this is an opportunity to you know, to really raise our game, raise our profile. And I think I had 5 to choose from, I think, Oscar. So the 5th one I wanted to talk about was anxiety. And you know, I heard a great quote the other day that the role of business travel, we've done a wonderful job in business travel, or in travel in general, over the last 20 years, that actually jumping on a plane to New York is no more complex than jumping on a subway. Right? It's as simple as that. There's nothing we need to think about. We just need to make a booking, perhaps check our passport, get on the plane and go. We don't need to worry about it. Well, guess what? That's gone now. You know, the thought of being able to at the last minute book a trip and react to an event that's happening, whether it's a client saying they wanted to see you or a project that's failing that you need to go and fix, that can't happen, right? The planning that's needed now, and that's kind of causing a lot of anxiety. That's causing a lot of stress. I've seen a lot of quotes from people saying they would jump on a plane tomorrow. I'm a road warrior. I would fly tomorrow. I'm going to challenge that, actually, and I have challenged that. Anyone that follows me on social media, I genuinely believe that people that say that, what they're probably almost definitely talking about is what they would jump on a plane domestically, right? I don't think anybody who's saying that is realistically talking about jumping on a long haul flight. And secondly, they're also saying, they're not saying they'll jump on a plane tomorrow. What they're saying is they want to travel with the experience and the ease that you had in 2019. I think if anybody has seen the challenges or thinks about the experience they get today, wearing a mask everywhere, nervousness, you know, you can't necessarily, depending on where you're going, you might not be particularly welcome. You know, that's not what people are crying out for. That's not what people want. People want the 2019 travel experience. They don't necessarily want the 2021 travel experience. So I think all of that adds up to a level of anxiety, perhaps, by travelers that we're going to have to overcome. We're going to have to persuade people in some instances that they need to go on a plane, they need to travel for company business. So that's going to be interesting. So I think that was my 5 pieces there, Oscar.
The key point is value. It's not anymore, price is not the priority number 1, it's value. And because it's the complexity of the business travel. I totally agree. And the ecosystem changed and the industry changed, because before was very, very driven by price and now and cost. And now it's value. It's completely different. And now it's the third question is a very, very difficult one. I understand that. Everybody's talking and dreaming about the reactivation in business travel and how it's going to happen, because it's not going to happen overnight and it's not going to happen as was before. What is your view about the reactivation?
Well, interestingly, I think this is probably a more straightforward question, I think, Oscar. I think it, you know, business travel starts domestically, right? It has to start domestically. And actually, almost with business travel, it has to start in leisure travel. Someone's not going to jump on an aircraft or go and travel for business before they've satisfied themselves that it's safe and it's comfortable. And probably how they'll do that is they'll first of all go on a leisure trip. So I think if we take travel as a whole, I think clearly for once in my career, I kind of wish I specialized in leisure travel rather than business travel, because I think there's massive pent up demand in leisure travel, which doesn't happen in business travel. Okay, so I think it happens domestic, it happens regional, and then it happens long haul. And certainly it's true that those companies that have an extensive domestic market are somewhat shielded by the travel economic issues, if you like. So I'm thinking about North America, or I'm thinking about the US, I'm thinking about Australia, for example. Clearly they have just geography alone means they have a sizable domestic market. We're seeing it in the UK, but you typically don't fly around the UK. But things will happen domestically at first, because actually, if you start domestically, it takes the problems of things like insurance, medical, testing, largely. A lot of these issues don't really apply. I think we're seeing, lots of corridors being set up, but incredibly complicated. I was talking to a friend of mine over the weekend and saying that, for you to travel to a different country right now, or even going forward, there's almost one of four things that's got to happen, right? So you've got to be allowed by your own country. So in my case, the UK has got to allow, well, the UK doesn't care whether I go to somewhere. It's about me coming back, having been to somewhere, just to be clear. So we have our kind of red, amber, green list, as many countries do. You then have the receiving country have the same process going on. So one hopes that they are coordinated, but guess what? They're not. You've then got to be able to fly between those two places, right? And then finally, it's got to be physically safe. So if I use the UK as an example, from a COVID perspective, we were perfectly allowed to travel to Israel last week, right? So it was deemed safe from COVID, both from the UK and an Israeli perspective, it was deemed safe. But the flights weren't going because of the political, the conflict that was happening last week, right? So there's a number of things have all got to align, which just makes life incredibly complicated. So I think it's an incredibly complex piece. We need to make sense of that. So going back to the point, it's domestic, it's then regional, it's then long haul. I think that hybrid plays a big part of it. And I think this is a really exciting part. And this is where I mentioned earlier, I think that things that were happening anyway have been accelerated through COVID. So again, I can't speak for Spain, but certainly the UK has what we call this presenteeism approach. You need to be in the office. If you're not in the office, you're deemed to be not there, or somehow working less hard. Well, actually, that's kind of gone away. There is absolutely a place for working in the office, and goodness, Oscar, I so wish you and I were sitting together with a coffee doing this face to face. That would be fantastic. But there's absolutely a place for face to face. But actually, it's not going to be so frowned upon now. Being not there. So you imagine a meeting, right? If all of a sudden somebody can't attend because perhaps they've got a small bug, or they've got a common cold or something, we don't want them in the office anymore. Whereas before they would have come in, and certainly I can't speak to Spain. In the UK, it would have been, hey, look at me, I'm not feeling well and I've come in, aren't I brilliant? Well, no, actually, we need to move away from that. And of course we want people in, but we need a way of seamlessly bringing content and bringing people in who, for whatever reason, can't be in the room. And so I think that's an exciting part. And again, I think that's certainly for meetings and events, that's a really great example of where the restart happens slowly but surely.
We demonstrate ourselves that it's possible to work in a different way. You don't have to be in the office 100% of the time. And in Spain was the same, Chris. We spent time and hours in commuting to any job, especially in big cities like Madrid and Barcelona. Therefore, we are now in the position say it's so important to be in the office, or maybe it's not so important. Therefore, we're in the same situation, and companies are really rethinking the way to do business. And I believe face-to-face is critical, absolutely, but maybe not 100%. Who knows? Okay, the next question, Chris, is about technology. We talk about hybrid meetings, hybrid conversations, and now is how technology is changing the way to do things. And you see a different direction as before the pandemic. Business travel was very, very linked to technology for years, online booking tools, tracking system, and so on and so on. Now, do you see a change in that direction?
Sure. So, I mean, technology will always play a part here, but again, you know, I can't help thinking that the way you automate something, right, you have to start by understanding the process, and you actually have to start by documenting the process and probably doing the process manually, right, before you can even start to automate it. So again, you know, right now with such an incredibly complicated process with regards to travel, you know, what does insurance look like? What tests do I need? How do I evidence it? What track and trace system do I need? What language does that come in? All of these different components, it's going to take a really, really smart technology solution in order to manage that, and somebody will manage it, right? So it will happen. But I think for now it's really a case of somebody needs to get their arms around the solution and say, okay, if somebody wants to travel, this is the process. And actually, you know, if that's picking up the phone to somebody and having a conversation and having somebody talk them through the process, followed up by documentation or augmented by technology, then that's fine. You know, I don't see too many clients right now who are saying we have to have a technological solution for getting my people where they need to be. I think the question from buyers is simply, tell me how I get my people to where they need to be. It's not about giving the technological solution. I just need to make sense of this issue. Now, I think technology will come, of course it will, but technology is not, we don't just use technology because we use technology. We use technology because it happens to give greater value. Right. Yeah. So if TMCs by having a telephone service were giving unbelievable value and driving costs down and persuading people to not travel or persuading them to travel better, and they were doing all that over the phone, I don't think there's too many buyers would say we absolutely have to put that in an online tool. The only reason why we were desperate for online tools is we just simply weren't seeing the value in it. So if we're not seeing the value in it, then we want to transactionalize it, commoditize it, and drive the costs down. So technology will, of course, continue to have a place in this. But right now, I think it's about just getting our arms around a solution. And if that is in a non-technological way, I think that will be fine for most people.
We see this as well in Spain. For a while, people, travel agencies, just called the hotel because we didn't know if the hotel was open and closed, because the GDS was not updated at some point. Therefore, the traveler arrived to the hotel and was closed because information in the GDS was not updated. Therefore, I totally agree. Many people take the phone again and ring the hotel. And this is not digital transformation, but was working, was necessary to do it like this, and just to make sure that the client get to the proper hotel.
And let me add to that as well, Oscar. I think the anxiety thing is a really big part of it. You know, again, I go back to the point that there aren't too many people who are saying, get me on a plane right now. I think it will change a little bit, but a lot of people are still very nervous. They're very wary. So again, you know, depending on where the company is, if the company wants and needs people to travel, which in many instances that is the case, we need to somehow deliver something to them that persuades them that it's safe, that gives them the reassurance, gives them the comfort, gives them the confidence. And if that's a technological solution, great. If it's a phone call, that's great as well. It doesn't matter. But actually, you know, each company needs to decide, what does travel look like going forward, and how do we then deliver that to our people? And
as well, you mentioned before, the cost linked to that transaction, because an online transaction is completely different to a telephone transaction, manual transaction. Therefore, the value is different and the price, the cost is different as well.
Yeah.
And the last question for you, and as well, I think it's a very, very tough question. It's about how companies are deciding why to travel. You mentioned before, road warriors wants to go into the plane tomorrow, but other people say, no, I don't want to travel for a while. Therefore, how do you see companies will make the decision why to travel and budgeting? Because now it's more difficult to know the total cost, the return on the investment of any travel, any trip.
And this is the fascinating one, isn't it? I've heard some real kind of industry legends talking about this relentlessly. And I think it's a fascinating topic. And, again, I would go back to the point that let's not just automatically assume everybody wants to travel. So when I look at these, very intricate process flows, this is how travel looks in a post-COVID era. It always starts with traveler request travel. But what if they don't, right? So, we need to understand, the motivations for people traveling, because what, the fun has gone. Was business travel ever fun? Well, it depends perhaps who I'm talking to, right? So if I'm talking to friends not in the industry, then I'll say it's really tough and we get up and we work relentlessly. But you know what, it is nice. It's lovely to be able to go out and interact with people that you work. So there is an element of fun or enjoyment, perhaps might be a better word, and that's now gone, right? Yeah. And that's gone for a long time. So I think the motivations around travel have certainly changed. So we can't automatically assume that people want to travel. I've heard it described that business travel is like cholesterol. There's good travel and there's bad travel, and therefore, what we need to do in every company is identify what does good travel look like, and what does bad travel look like, and our role is to perhaps squeeze bad travel and to accelerate or grow good travel. But even that's not as straightforward. If we go back a few years, there was a really simple internal external. So if you were going to meet an external client, that was good. If you were meeting someone internally, that was bad. That could be on video conference, but that's really simplistic in terms of the way that we're doing it. Depends on your industry sector. It might very well be that's quite a lot of that internal travel is really, really valuable for your organization, right? So again, we can't be too simplistic with this.
Chris, thank you very much for your views. As always, it's a pleasure, for your time, for your knowledge. And we hope we can meet together in the near future, in Spain, England, wherever, in any place, but face to face. And I believe as well that there is a value in that.
I completely agree. Thank you so much, Oscar, and I wish everybody a great day.